This is Hybrid Cognition, a narrated version of my Substack essays and field notes on AI, organizations, leadership, governance, and institutional change. The original article, related notes, and any companion tools are linked in the description. Something strange has happened over the last 2 years. Suddenly, almost everything became AI. Software platforms that used to be described as automation tools are now AI-powered. Customer service workflows became intelligent assistants. Basic recommendation engines became generative experiences. Product roadmaps became AI strategies. And organizations that had only minimal AI integration began describing themselves as AI first. Once you start noticing it, it's everywhere. A familiar product gets an AI label, a workflow gets an AI interface, a strategy document gets an AI section, a vendor pitch gets an AI layer. A company announces an AI transformation before it has really transformed anything. At first, it's tempting to treat this as simple hype, and some of it is hype. But I think something more interesting is happening. Organizations are not only adopting AI, they are learning to perform AI adoption. That distinction matters, because the performance of transformation can arrive before the transformation itself, and that pattern should feel familiar. We've been seeing something like this before with sustainability. Over the last 2 decades, sustainability moved from being a niche concern to becoming a strategic and reputational necessity. At first, it was about environmental responsibility, then it became part of corporate strategy. Then ESG frameworks expanded, then investors, regulators, customers, employees, and media all began expecting organizations to demonstrate that they were sustainable, responsible, ethical, and future-oriented. So organizations responded. Sustainability reports appeared, net zero commitments appeared, carbon neutral branding appeared, ethical sourcing language appeared, purpose statements appeared, ESG sections appeared in annual reports. Some of this reflected real operational change. Some of it created pressure for real operational change later. But some of it was mostly symbolic. Eventually, we needed a word for the gap between the appearance of sustainability and the reality of operational transformation. That word is greenwashing. And today, something structurally similar appears to be emerging around AI. Let's call it AI washing. But I want to be careful here. The point is not simply that organizations are lying about AI. That framing is too easy. And honestly, it misses the most important or more interesting pattern. The more interesting pattern is that AI is becoming a legitimacy category. Organizations are increasingly expected to show that they are close to AI, that they understand it, that they are adopting it, that they are not being left behind, that they are innovative, future-ready, technologically competent, and strategically relevant. In other words, AI is becoming a symbol of organizational seriousness. And once that happens, the incentive structure changes. Having AI starts to matter socially before it matters operationally. Boards ask about it, investors ask about it, customers ask about it, employees ask about it. Executives ask whether competitors are moving faster. Product teams are expected to include it in roadmaps. Marketing teams are expected to mention it in positioning. Consulting firms create AI offerings. Software companies add AI features. Startups discover that AI language changes how investors, customers, and the media respond to them. The result is a strange but familiar organizational behavior. Organizations begin performing readiness before they have fully built capability. They signal AI adoption socially before they operationalize it structurally. And this is where the parallel to greenwashing becomes most useful. When sustainability became a legitimacy category, organizations did not all wait until they had fully transformed their supply chains, operations, energy use, and governance models before talking about sustainability. They started talking first. Reporting came first, commitments came first, language came first. Operational transformation often followed later. Sometimes it followed seriously, sometimes it did not. AI is now moving through a similar institutional cycle. The technology is real, the shift is real, the pressure is real, but the organizational transformation is often incomplete. And this creates a gap between symbolic AI adoption and operational AI adoption. Symbolic adoption looks like this: AI language in strategy documents, AI-powered branding, AI pilots with unclear business ownership, generic co-pilots added to existing workflows, ethics principle published before accountability structures are clear, announcement about AI transformation without changes to how decisions are actually made. Operational adoption looks different. It means workflows are redesigned, governance models are updated, accountability is clarified. Decision architectures are revised, human-machine collaboration is deliberately designed. Verification, oversight, and escalation are built into the real processes. People know where AI is allowed to influence decisions and where it is not. The organization understands not only which tools it has purchased, but how those tools change work. That is a much higher bar, and that is why AI washing matters. The real risk is not just that organizations exaggerate. The deeper risk is that successful signaling can delay real transformation. If the organization can look AI ready, the immediate pressure to become AI ready may weaken. The board sees activity, the market sees announcements, customers hear the right language, employees see new tools, vendors provide AI-labeled products. Everybody can point to something. But underneath the surface, the organization may still be operating according to older logic. The workflows are the same, the governance is the same, the decision rights are the same, the accountability model is the same, the metrics are the same, the authority structure is the same. Only now AI has been layered on top. This is a problem because AI is not just another software feature. AI increasingly participates in cognitive work. It shapes recommendations, it classifies cases, it prioritizes tasks, it summarizes information, it frames choices, it generates alternatives, it changes what people see before they decide. So if AI is added to old workflows without redesigning those workflows, the organization may not become more intelligent. It may simply become more confused. The tools change the work, but the organization keeps pretending the work is the same. This is where AI adoption becomes different from many earlier technology adoption cycles. A new database changes information storage. A CRM changes customer management. An ERP changes process coordination. But AI systems can change the structure of reasoning itself. They can influence how problems are framed, how options are generated, how risks are perceived, and how decisions are justified. So the question is not only, does the organization use AI? The better question is, has the organization reorganized around the fact that AI now participates in reasoning? That is a much harder question to answer. And it is the question most AI adoption conversations avoid, because it is easier to talk about tools. It's much easier to talk about pilots. It's easier to talk about productivity. It's easier to say, we have deployed Copilot. We have launched an AI assistant. We have an AI roadmap. We are exploring generative AI. We are becoming AI first. Those statements may be true, but they may still be incomplete. The harder questions are, which decisions are now shaped by AI? Who owns those systems? Who verifies the outputs? Who is accountable when the system influences a bad decision? How has the workflow changed? How has leadership authority changed? How has governance changed? How has the organization's reasoning processes changed? If those questions have not been answered, then the organization may have adopted AI rhetorically faster than cognitively. That phrase is important. AI can be adopted rhetorically before it is adopted cognitively. The rhetoric says, we are AI enabled. The cognition says, our way of thinking, deciding, coordinating, and governing has actually changed. Those are not the same thing. And this is where the sustainability analogy becomes especially useful. Greenwashing was not only about deception, it was also about institutional adaptation under pressure. Organizations were trying to respond to a changing legitimacy environment. They needed to show that they understood the new expectations. Some were sincere, some were cynical. Many were somewhere in between. Over time, the symbolic commitments sometimes created pressure for actual operational change. A company that made a public sustainability commitment could later be held to it. Reporting created visibility, visibility created comparison, comparison created pressure. Pressure sometimes created transformation. AI washing may follow a similar path. Symbolic AI adoption is not always useless. It may be a transitional state. Organizations that perform AI adoption today may later be forced to operationalize those claims as expectations mature. Customers may ask harder questions. Regulators may require more clarity. Boards may demand better governance. Employees may expect real workflow improvement. Competitors may expose shallow adoption. So the symbolic phase is not necessarily the end of the story. It may be the unstable beginning. But that only works if organizations eventually move from appearance to architecture, from AI language to AI governance, from tool deployment to workflow design, from pilots to accountability, from branding to operational model, from symbolic adoption to operational transformation. And eventually, something even more interesting may happen. The technology may disappear into infrastructure. Think about electricity. No serious organization markets itself as electricity powered. Think about the internet. Most organizations do not describe ordinary processes as internet enabled anymore. Even cloud computing, which was once a major strategic label, is increasingly becoming invisible organizational infrastructure. At some point, if a technology becomes sufficiently foundational, it stops being a branding category. It becomes part of how things just work. AI may follow the same path. The current moment of maximal AI visibility may actually precede AI normalization. Right now, organizations talk constantly about AI because it creates a signal. It says, we are modern, we are innovative, we understand the future. But as AI becomes infrastructural, that signaling premium may decline. Operational competence will matter more than rhetorical positioning. Governance will matter more than novelty. Organizations will be judged less by whether they claim AI and more by whether they have successfully reorganized around it. In that world, mature organizations may talk less about AI, not more, because AI has become embedded. The final stage of AI adoption may not be visible intelligence everywhere. It may be the disappearance of AI as a category. And when that happens, the distinction between symbolic adoption and operational transformation will become impossible to ignore. The organizations that only performed intelligence will look very different from those that actually changed how they work. So when you hear an organization describe itself as AI first, AI powered, or AI enabled, the useful response is not immediate cynicism. The useful response is curiosity. What has actually changed? Has the workflow changed? Has accountability changed? Has governance changed? Has the decision process changed? Has the operating model changed? Has the organization's understanding of work changed? Or has AI mainly become a new layer of language on top of old structures? That is the test. Not whether AI is present, but whether the organization has moved from symbolic adoption to operational transformation. And in the long run, that may be the difference between organizations that merely perform intelligence and organizations that become capable of working with it. If you want to read the original essay, follow the links in the description. I've also included any related field notes, companion tools, and references there. Thanks for listening.